What's up guys, Card Protagonist here. Today I'll be doing a deck profile on DN0 Time Dragons. Time Dragons is used by K in the Buddyfight manga and has been dominating tournaments all across Japan, making it a staple in its 2-deck format. I foresee this deck making a huge impact in the English meta as it has been performing really well in Japan. What makes this deck really strong is its flag, which comes with 3 fixed abilities that gives Time Dragons unmatched consistency. So I hope this video helps you better understand the deck in case you face one during your tournament. Before I begin the deck profile, I would like to first explain how the flag works. We have God Clock 1, 2, 3 and its final God Clock, which allows you to flip into the boss monster itself. God Clock 1 allows you to send one card from the hand to the bottom of the deck and flip it face down. And if you do, you can look at the top 3 cards of the deck and add one of them into your hand and the rest goes into the drop zone. This ability itself is extremely useful because just in case you have a dead card in the hand, you can always cycle your hand to check the top 3 for a more useful card. So this ability is one of my favorite and it's usually the ability you always start off with. So with that done, we will flip it face down. As you can see, right behind you have a boss monster, which is an extremely powerful unit. So let's check out God Clock 2. God Clock 2 is extremely important because not only it prevents you from getting first turn killed FTK, it is also very useful just in case you do not draw into any negates in your hand. So its ability is you may put a card from your hand to the bottom of the deck and turn this card face down. If you do, end any battle and draw a card. So this is very useful, especially as previously mentioned for FTKs, because you get the only one attack and you can stop that huge attack. It might be a fire crit attack that ends the game. You can use this ability, turn it face down and draw an extra card, which is always nice. So let's check out Clock 3. Clock 3 is another useful ability that can be used during your opponent's turn or your turn. So it's a counter ability. Choose one monster in the drop zone and you can put a hand card face down to your deck. If you do, Superior Call it and by paying its card cost. So it's pretty fair and it's very useful because it serves as another monster in the center, or during your turn you could just call monsters you want to set up because this deck does mill a lot and send cards from the deck to the drop zone. So having this card helps you turbo your deck a little more and you get to flip the number 3 face down. And finally, the last God Clock is God Clock itself. So at the end of opponent's turn, if 3 of your flags are in reversal, you may put a monster with Time Ruler's name from your field or hand into drop zone. So you gotta have one card, one of these in your hand or your field. If it's on the field, so you gotta send all of it into the drop zone in order to flip this face down. Or if you have one in your hand, you can just discard it. So the optimal play is of course to have one of these in your hand and of course having it on the field, so you can let the one on the field maintain itself. So just like that, you go into Perfect Deity of Eon and the End Ruler Dragon, which is its corrupted form. So this is a 12/12 monster that has the ability to stop time, Toki Wa Tomare. So this card is pretty much unstoppable because it cannot be nullified. It can only be rested. So if you guys want to counter against this deck, do prepare a lot of rest spells because it cannot be nullified by Dragon Shields and stuff, and it can only be stopped by resting. So the best counter Japan currently had against this deck was to rest this monster. Its most prominent ability is the ability to stop time. So Eternal Eon, when this card attacks alone, so it cannot link attack. Another weakness of this deck is it has a weakness against decks that are above 13k defense because if it's unable to solo, it has to link, and if it links, you can still cast abilities to stop the attack nullify. So most of the people do bump their monsters up to 13k in order to prevent it from soloing, because whenever it solos, it stops time of all your opponent's card effects. Your opponent cannot cast any counter against this ability, so basically Keyword's ability cannot be used. So stuff like counter attack, I believe, Soul Guard cannot activate. So a Tick Soul monster will instantly get vanquished by this monster. So it's a very powerful card that also has triple attack. So it's 4/4 every time it swings. So yeah, if you're fighting against this beast, the best option is just to rest it, because resting this monster means it won't be able to attack, and that's the best way to counter against this monster. Otherwise, if you don't have any rest cards, you're pretty much dead. This card is able to do a lot of damage. And of course, the buddy you play is the Time Ruler Dragon, Deity of Eon. A pretty standard buddy because this is the card that you will definitely call. In this deck, we do play 2 versions of him because of certain situations. So it is Dragot, so he can be played in any world, any deck. He has a core cost of paying 2 gauge and putting top card of the deck into the soul. 2 cards into the soul, so it's pretty tanky by itself. Wind Chronos allows you to regen every single of your start of the turn, which is great because you can pay its soul for cost and you'll just regen during your turn. But most prominent ability, it's its ability to bounce the cards back to the bottom of the deck. So only during the start of the opponent's battle phase, nullify the ability of a card on the opponent's field and send it back to the bottom of the opponent's deck. So it is a very powerful ability because if your opponent does not have any cards that prevents nullification, everything will be sent back to the bottom of the deck, excluding the soul. The soul will be sent to the drop zone. So this is powerful because it bypasses a lot of anti-destruction and anti-bounce. So yeah, one copy of it is Buddy. First, let's go on to the monsters. We play 3 copies of the Buddy itself. Time Ruler Dragon, Deity of Eon. So the main reason why we play more of these is because this is the more consistent version of the deck, and as there's a lot of rares in the format, we only use 1 copy of the trial deck just in case we fight against decks that does not have a lot of rares abilities. This overall has a bit more power compared to this, but this is slightly more consistent because during your opponent's turn, you can before the attack you can just select one of their cards and send it back to the bottom of the deck. Whereas this is slightly more powerful because it activates each time it attacks. It's the same ability, but when it attacks each time. However, with the amount of resting cards in the meta right now, this card definitely won't be able to pull off, and this is a slightly better option. But I do still go to this guy against decks that do not have any rest cards. Yeah, because it's still slightly more powerful removal. It's a hard removal in my opinion. So this is the lineup: 1 copy of the trial deck 1 and 3 copies of the secret pack. Obviously, if you're playing budget, the trial deck 1 is almost as good because you want to sacrifice it for your DN ruler. So this is the lineup: 1 trial deck and 3 copies of the secret pack. Next, monsters that become size zeros. So these are the monsters that will become size 0 when you have a card reversal. So it's really good because it's pretty much guaranteed that there will be reversal in this deck, especially with reversal 1, which allows you to check top 3 for extreme consistency. So these guys are definitely size zeros and they go really well together with the Time Dragon. So I'm going to go through each of their abilities first. So it has a core cost of 3. This is slightly more expensive, but its ability is extremely powerful, and he does have a triple attack as well. So if your flag in reversal, it's a size 0. And also, when this card attacks or is destroyed, if your flag is reversal during its flight, destroy up to 1 card from opponent's field. And if your flag is already in End Ruler Dragon, instead of destroying 1 card, you can send it to bottom deck. Yes, Penetrate, Triple Attack, Soul Guard, and Counter Attack. There are a few ways you can play this. You either play this in this formation, which is put it in the center, since its counter attack definitely does protect you, and each time you get destroyed by opponent's attack, you'll be able to destroy a card on opponent's field or send it back to the bottom of the deck. So some players choose to play it like this. If you're unable to predict your play, perhaps this will be the lineup with Eon in the center. So the optimal is definitely to put in the center. Alright, he has 3 crits as well, so it's really powerful. He has a 10k defense, which is pretty tanky by itself. And the next one we have is Zuid Welk. It's basically the Star Dragon version. So it has core cost of 2 gauge. Now gauge is not really a problem in this deck because we do play Langi. Langi is for each face down card you flipped with your Time Dragons, it reduces the cost. So this guy usually gets maximum 1 cost to 0, so maximum of 1 gauge. So if your flag is reversal, once again it comes to size 0. All Time Dragon on a few gains plus 10k attack and 1 critical if your flags are reversed 2 or more times, which is pretty easy because you can just use a Monster Reborn and your look top 3 and it becomes reversal 2 already. Counter ability: if your Dragon were to be attacked, you can just pay 1 gauge and end the battle. This kind of contradicts because you usually put in your center to its counter attack and put Eon at the side. So most of the time your opponent will be killing him first before Eon. But if Eon happens to be in the center, like what I previously mentioned, you can always use the ability to nullify the attack by paying 1 gauge, which is very cheap and worth it. Yeah, so it's just 1 copy. Then for the double attack and counter attack, this is actually slightly more better. Zwite Leg is alright, I guess. It's a size 0, which is actually pretty good. Next, 4 copy of one of the best cards in the deck, which is Langi. Langi reduces all costs of your Time Dragons, and its ability to draw 2 whenever cards enter your Time Dragon, so it's really good. So this card itself gives you draw power and reduces your gauge cost. So most of the time if you call Time Dragons, they will be cost 1 or less, which is awesome, and also you get to draw 2. Right, we play 4 because you really want to see him in the opening hand. Getting into Time Dragon is really easy with this deck, since you will be able to search it out with spells or just turbo it out with a lot of various draw power that this deck has. 3 copies of the Hero World monster, which allows you to look top 3. But one thing I realized about this deck is this deck has tons of look top 3, which is actually kind of better than drawing cards, because you get to dig into 3 cards instead of drawing 2 cards. Well, of course, drawing 2 definitely gives you more value, but looking at top 3 is huge in this deck because combo pieces are kind of required to make the deck function well, and this deck is excellent at picking up combo pieces. So when this card enters the field, you can look at top 3 cards of the deck and put one to your hand and rest into the drop zone. If you have 2 or more flipped up time, 2 or more reverse, you can put this card into gauge, making it superhero time, which is great. So this card can only be called once per turn because otherwise you'll be really broken. So it's 3 copies. 2 copies of Vegas. Vegas is quite important because of the mirror match and the amount of time dragons in the meta right now. Vegas is the counter to other time dragons. It has core cost of putting 1 time dragon from a drop zone into its soul, so it does have a bit of survivability. So its activate ability is what makes it really strong. Choose up to 3 cards in your opponent's drop zone and you may pay 1 gauge. If you do, choose the chosen cards and put it to the bottom of your opponent's deck in any order. Then if you have reversal 2 or more times during turn, you can draw an extra card. So this kind of gives you a bit of control, not only against time dragons. A lot of graveyard based decks, you can always use this guy to control your graveyard, send back the key cards or combos to the bottom of the deck and draw an extra card, which is always nice. The reason why you want to have this guy against time dragons is because of this card, which lurks in the drop zone and really destroys your plays. I'll go through that very soon. So it's 2 copies of Vegas because he is really important against mirror matches and a lot of the decks overall in the meta, even Dragots. Next, 4 copies of one of the best cards of the deck. The reason why this card is really good is because it sets itself in the drop zone. Even while we have this guy in the hand, it's not really dead because you can just counter ditch it and gain 3 life, which is great. And second ability is when this guy is in the drop zone, you can send it to the bottom of the deck, then choose one of your own cards and destroy it, and then destroy one of your opponent's cards. So this card combos really well with this guy, because when this guy is being destroyed, so you can actually just target its ability to destroy himself. So with its ability in the drop zone, you send it to the bottom of the deck, you will be able to pop 2 cards while popping one of your cards, which is always good. And also you can also, if you do not have him, do not worry, you can always pop Eon, because Eon will regain anyway, will regen during your turn. So you can just target Eon, pop one of its soul out, go at the bottom of the deck, then during your turn just regen those souls. So it's really good because it gives you a lot of control. You definitely want to have him in the drop zone because you want to counter against your opponent's plays to disrupt your plays as well. 4 copies because this card is one of your best removals and it's really quick play. It does give you a lot of control. 3 copies of the reason why people buy this TD is 3 copies of Octo. Octo is not only good in Time Dragons, it's good in Ancient World as well. So its counter ability, select one of the opponent's monsters and discard this card from your hand. So you ditch this and you pay 1 gauge. If you do, nullify ability for this turn, nullify the ability of that chosen card. So cards that gives you a bit of search, like Searcher for Dragots, or any cards that give your opponent advantage, just ditch this and you cancel out their play. And after that, if you have reversal 2 or more, you can draw a card. So basically you're ditching this for free, perhaps at the cost of 1 to stop your opponent's plays. It's really, really good. There's so many times that I win games just because I ditch this and stop their entire play. Any searchers that they have, their monsters, just stop it. Or any deadly abilities, just null it. The only way they can survive is they have anti-nullifies. And finally, 2 copies of Sone. I used to play 3. I dropped it 2 because I do realize that I do not use his ability too much, because we do have a lot of defense in this deck, including our flag, which give us the immunity it needs. So 2 to 3 is fine, but I'm making 2 so that I can explain more cards in this deck. So Sone is really good. It's basically a deal gain. So when your opponent attacks, you can just counter and call it, and it redirects to attack to him. And the second ability is when it's being destroyed and you have 2 or more cards that's reversed already, you get to draw a card. So it's basically deal gain. Yeah, pretty nice card in my opinion. So now we go on the spells. I really like the spells in this deck because they look so dang cool. So 4 copies of Time is Money. I don't really know how to read the Almete name, or I just say it Almete. So Time is Money. So when this card, when you activate this card, you look at top 3 cards of the deck and then choose 1 into your hand and rest goes into gauge. That's pretty much superhero time. Second ability then is if your flag is reversal 2 or more times, you get to gain 2 life. Pretty much a bonus at this point. Most important is just a card that gives you a lot of consistency by checking top 3. Yeah, so it's a really good card. So it's 4 copies. 4 copies of Chronos Leech Movement. Chronos Leech Movement is our basic draw power. You may only cast card if Time Dragon on the field, pay 1 gauge, then draw 2 cards. It's basically a nice one. However, if you have 3 or more reversal cards, you can draw an extra card. So pay 1 gauge to draw 3 is always good. And you use it usually in the early game. I play 4 because I really want to see it, just to get that nice one going. And when you go into your time, the End Ruler Dragon, you can draw 3 cards, which is awesome. So even if I have spare copies, can always use the Clock ability to send in the bottom deck, and that will not be a problem for me. So yeah, 4 copies of Chronos Leech Movements. 2 copies of Chronos Bane Argi. So it's just the Magic World version of its draw power. More draw power for this deck, of course. This deck is just full of advantage. So it's cost of 1 life, pretty cheap. You get to draw 1 card, then if you have a flag in reversal 2 or more times, you draw additional card. It's pretty much guaranteed at this point because the 2 God Clocks effect are so easy to pull off, and going to reversal 2 is extremely easy with this deck. So yeah, it's a pay 1 life to draw 2. Nice. Next, we have 2 copies of Chronos Sin Epita. Sin Epita is your searcher for your boss monster, which is your Time Dragon. You charge 1 gauge and check the deck for a Dragod and Time Dragon attribute, so you can only search for your Trial deck versions or your Secret Pack version. Very important. In total, I do play about 6 of these. With the amount of draw power, I find this is a very good number. You could play 3 if you want to, but most of the time you have no problem getting into it. If I have problem getting into it, I probably bump this up to one more, so bump it up to 3. Otherwise, 2 is fine because you can only use this ability once per turn, and as long as you want setup on the field, it's all good. So 2 copies working well for me. Next, 2 copies of the set spell. This is actually pretty important, especially against the mirror match. With the mirror match being all about nullify a monster and sending it back to your opponent's deck. This card prevents you from being nullified, and also whenever you bounce stuff back to your opponent's bottom of the deck or bounce it back to their hand, you get to charge and draw during your turn and opponent's turn. So obviously this card is very important, and however 2 copies is just enough because you don't have too much in your hand and it does clog up. So 2 is fine because I'm able to dig through my deck for these cards, then 2 is working fine for me. 2 copies of Quartzman. Its main ability is put up to 1 Time Dragon monster from a drop zone to your hand. So if you want to retrieve any of your monsters, your boss monster. However, from what I've seen in tournament play, some of the most cards, some of the most return cards are these, the utility hand spells, or yeah, basically anything. Mostly are the utility hand spells because you definitely want them in your hand, especially this card is really good. If you do not have any play, you can always pick this guy up. He's always in the drop zone. You can pick this guy up, get an extra 3 life. You know, it's really good. So that aside, if you have 2 or more reversal, you get to charge 2 gauge, and your flag is 3 or more, you get 3 life. So in overall, the amount of advantage you're getting from this card is insane. Think about this. You get 1 monster card, and you get 2 gauge. So you're getting 2 gauge. At the cost of 1 card, you're getting 2 gauge, and you're getting a return of a monster. So you're getting 2 gauge and 3 life. Then you use this card, gain 6 life. So it's 6 life and 2 gauge for a single card. Think about it. 2 gauge and 6 life, and that is huge. 2 copies of Chronos Trope. Chronos Trope is just your basic removal. So you may only cast a card if Time Dragon on the field. You pay 1 life and choose one of the following abilities. Put a card from your opponent's field to the bottom of your deck. So this is a pretty basic ability and it bypasses the anti-destruction, anti-bounce. Very good. The reason why I love this card is because it helps trigger your set spell, which activates when you send stuff back to the bottom of the deck. So sometimes you do not really have ways to send bottom of the deck unless it's your opponent's turn. So during your opponent's turn, you guarantee to send back 1 card. But with this, you don't really have any triggers during your turn, and this is one of those triggers. Also, it's a side deck card against certain matchups like Idol Master with Tick Soul. Return souls of all cards to opponent's field to the deck and shuffle it. So it costs 1 life for a powerful effect like this is really good. It's either nice removal or just some soul removal. So 2 copies. For the negates, you play 3 copies of Chronos Sin Block N, a really powerful defensive spell because it does have 2 abilities. So you may only cast this card during your opponent's attack and your flag is in reversal. So its ability is, if your opponent attacks 3 times or more, you can end the battle phase, which is very good because it is basically a de-alteration. The second ability is even more powerful because fighting against decks that do utilize impact gets shut down by this card instantly. If your flag is in End Ruler Dragon, which is a full form, you can pay 2 gauge to end the turn, which is really powerful because you're able to skip the final phase and they won't be able to activate any impacts or all those shenanigans. So it is really powerful. Next is 3 copies of Chronos Barrier. Chronos Barrier is from the trial deck and it works really well. It has a cast cost of paying 1 soul from usually from Time Ruler because you can regen soul, and pay 1 gauge. So select cards on your opponent's field equals to the number of reversal. So usually 2 to 3. Select 2 to 3 cards and rest them. And for that turn, the opponent cannot resend those cards. So it's really good basic control card with amount of aggression in the meta, and also the mirror match because the End Ruler, if you got to rest that card, otherwise you'll be destroyed instantly. And finally, 1 copy of Tech in Chronos Roy. What it does is really simple. It does resend all your cards and allow you to attack during the final phase. It's really important because of cards like Scene Block End. So Scene Block End does end your phase, and you go into your final phase and you're able to make a comeback in case in the mirror match. You resend all cards equals to number of reversal, and this time all your time dragons on the field can attack even during the final phase. This card is not only a counter in case your whole battle phase ends, it just gives you extra attacks in case you need to push for game. So one copy just fits right in the deck. So thank you guys for checking out my video. If you'd like to see more awesome Buddyfight deck profiles like these, be sure to subscribe to my channel and leave a like. So till next time, keep on buddy fighting!